people send my therapist videos of me being like, hey, this is how I feel, not knowing that they're sending their videos. They're sending their videos to my therapist. She finds it hilarious. I find it funny too. I'm like, if these people only knew that they're sending my videos to the person who's keeping me afloat right now.
Hey there, Vibers. Welcome to the Vibe with Kai podcast, where we keep it real, we keep it relatable, and we keep it a little bit funny as we dive into all things mental health, ADHD, and introversion. My name is Kai. I'm your host, and each week we're going to tackle life struggles with honesty, humor, and a whole lot of heart. So whether you're here for practical advice or a little validation or just a laugh about what life is like as an adult in today's world, listen, you are in the right place. We are not about toxic positivity here. We are all about being genuine to each other and to ourselves. And we're talking about real things. And we want to encourage each other and remind you that you are not alone. With that said, my friends, sit back, relax, and let's vibe through this together and enjoy today's episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast.
What's going on, Vibers? Welcome back to the Vibe with Kai podcast. This is episode 232. I can't believe I've done 232 of these. This all started during the height of the pandemic. I told myself that I was going to. I always wanted to do a podcast, and it started out, and it was originally called what was it called? Kairos Has Friends. I think it was what it was called. Kairos Has Friends, and I got that idea from one of my coworkers. Shout out to Sean, who came up with that idea because he saw that I had a lot of friends. So he's like, you should interview your friends. I was like, I've always wanted to interview people. I like interviewing people. And that kind of evolved into what it is today, the Vibe with Kai podcast, episode 232. It's crazy to think how far I've come along with that. In the background, you can see, if you're watching right now, you can see my one cat. That is Hamilton. I don't know what he's digging for. That's Hamilton. And then over my other shoulder, he is sleeping right now, but that's Burr. Hamilton and Burr are my two cats. If you know, you know. So as I do the recording today, you probably will see them poking in and out because they love to get very curious whenever I go live or whenever I'm recording a podcast episode. They always get curious. They're like, Kairos, who are you talking to? I want to know. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about the role that humor plays in the mental health conversation. But before we get started on that topic, here are three quick things. Number one, my quick turnaround trip to California. Just got back this morning. I flew out to California, flew out on Friday evening, had to shoot some stuff, some really fun stuff on Saturday, had a great dinner with my friend Amanda, who moved out to California, she did something that a bunch of us East Coasters, especially us theater kids that wanted to get into film and TV, she did something that we always wanted to do, and that is move from the East Coast to the West Coast. She did it. She actually did it. So it was great to catch up with her. And then I flew back, left out Saturday night, got back Sunday morning. It was a very quick turnaround trip to California. I wish I had more time to hang out there. It's not my first time in California. It's not my first time in LA, anything like that. But with that said, the reason that I was out there, I can't wait to tell you all about this because it was a really, really cool thing that I got to do. Met some incredible people, got to shoot with a major company talking about ADHD and mental health. Super excited to, reveal what it is that I did out in California this past weekend. But more information coming soon. And by soon, I don't mean like next week. I mean like next year, because what we're shooting comes out next year. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. So that was number one. Number two, this past Friday was the big old Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight on Netflix. And I know my audience, and so like I'm not going to sit here and talk about what my thoughts are on Mike Tyson and Jake Paul themselves, but I will talk about Netflix because Netflix, you got to get it together. You knew this was going to be a very big fight. You knew that a lot of people were going to be watching this event, and they just failed. I mean, it was just buffering. At first, I thought it was just me and my poor signal, but no. Apparently, everybody was having the same issues that I was having around the country, around the world. And what's scary for me is because I am, number one, a wrestling fan, and number two, a football fan. And Netflix is trying to get into the NFL game. They want to start airing some live games on Netflix. And as a wrestling fan, uh, WWE's Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown are coming to Netflix starting in January. So like those are live events that's going to have a lot of eyeballs on them. So I hope that they learned a lot of things from from this a fight between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, because oh man, Netflix, come on now. So that was number two. Number three, rest in peace, Kingda Ka. Oh man. So if you're not aware, Six Flags Great Adventure, which is in Jackson, New Jersey, my home park, announced that Kingda Ka will be closing forever. It's not reopening next season when the park opens up. They are taking it down to make room for a new roller coaster that's going to be debuting in 2026. I have a special place in my heart for Kingda Ka, not because it was the world's tallest, fastest roller coaster, 456 feet tall, 128 miles per hour. Um, but I used to work that ride. I used to work that ride back in the day. I used to work at Six Flags Great Adventure. I started working there in 2003. And during the 2003 2004 season, I worked at Superman Ultimate Flight. Shout out to Section 240. And then from there, in 2005, I worked my way over to Kingda Ka about halfway through the season. And then in 2006, I worked my way over to El Toro when that opened. So I spent a good year of my life working the ride at Kingda Ka, and I'm going to miss it. I mean, I don't think people understand how unique of a ride that was. Like you have Top Thrill Dragster, or, the new version of it in Cedar Point. But like this, the world's tall or the world's tallest coaster was in my backyard for, it would have been 20 years if it opened up next year. But I totally get why Six Flags is doing it. I mean, it cost a lot to keep that ride up and going in a safe way. And on top of that, I mean, the money that they are spending to keep that ride up and running in a safe way, it could be money spent on other things, other investments into the park that are much needed. And on top of that, I mean, from a technology standpoint, like the ride opened up in 2005. Since 2005, there's been so many different advancements in roller coaster technology since then. And the ride was just antiquated at that point. You know what I'm saying? And so I get it. I totally get it. For those of you that don't know, I am a major roller coaster fanatic. I love roller coasters. I am obsessed with theme parks. I've been on close to 200 roller coasters around the country. So yeah, so I know what I'm talking about when it comes to roller coasters. And I'm certainly going to miss Kingda Ka. So rest in peace, Kingda Ka. I don't think people appreciated you enough. Anyway, those were my three quick things. Thank you so much for sticking with me with that. Now let's get on to the main topic today. Um, wow, mental health. It's heavy. It's a heavy topic, and just hearing the term can make you feel like you're carrying this invisible weight. For many, it brings to mind the overwhelming days when anxiety and depression and ADHD make even the smallest tasks feel like you're climbing a mountain. Or maybe it's the sleepless nights when intrusive thoughts refuse to quiet down. These are the realities of mental health struggles. And while these conversations are necessary, they're also very hard to have. So here's the question that I want to explore today. What if we didn't always have to approach these conversations with such seriousness? What if we could laugh, not to dismiss the struggles, but to make them a little bit easier to face? If you followed me for any amount of time, you know that my content lives on the intersection of humor and mental health. You know me. I talk openly about my experiences with ADHD, depression, anxiety, existential OCD. I share my stories about navigating life as an introvert and the unique challenges that come with it. But I also add a little bit of humor, a splash of levity that makes these serious topics a little bit more approachable. Now, let's make one thing very clear, right? Humor is not a cure for mental health challenges. It's not some magical fix that makes everything okay. What humor is, however, it is a tool. It's a way to break down barriers and connect with others and make the tough stuff a little less intimidating. I use humor to create a space where we can talk about executive dysfunction, social exhaustion, or anxiety spirals without judgment. A space where we can acknowledge our struggles while also laughing at the absurdity of the human experience. Today, I want to share why humor matters in mental health conversations, how I use it responsibly, and the impact that it's had, not just on me, but the community that we've built together as Vibers. So, with that said, my friends, grab your coffee, grab your tea, grab your favorite snack. Hopefully, it's something with some cheese on it, because we're about to dive into why a little laughter might just be the secret ingredient to navigating the hard stuff. Let me take a swig of this drink and we're going to get started. Here we go. All right, my friends. Why humor matters in mental health conversations. Listen, humor is one of the most powerful tools that we have for navigating life's complexities. It has this incredible ability to transform the way that we perceive and interact with the world, especially when it comes to mental health. Now, let's face it, mental health conversations are often very heavy. They can feel like trudging through thick mud. Necessary, yes, but also exhausting. That's where humor comes in. It doesn't trivialize or diminish the seriousness of mental health challenges, but it does provide a little bit of light in an otherwise dark room. Let's start with why humor works so well in these conversations. Mental health is an inherently vulnerable topic. Whether it's discussing anxiety, depression, ADHD, or any other condition, just bringing it up can feel daunting. Many people are afraid of being judged or misunderstood, and some don't even have the words to describe what they're going through. Humor acts as a bridge. It creates a shared space where people can engage with these topics without feeling overwhelmed or overexposed. For example, I once made a video joking about how my ADHD brain convinces me to start reorganizing my entire kitchen at midnight. It's a ridiculous scenario, but it's also rooted in truth. Hyperfocus and impulsive task switching are very real aspects of living with ADHD. What's incredible about that video isn't just that people found it funny, it's that it sparked a meaningful conversation. People were all up in the comments being like, "Oh my gosh, that's me," or I didn't know anyone else did this." Some even shared that it helped them recognize similar patterns in their own lives. Humor breaks down barriers. It takes a situation that might feel isolating or shameful and turns it into a moment of connection. When we laugh about a shared experience, we're essentially saying, "You're not alone in this." That's a powerful message, especially in a world where mental health struggles are often accompanied by stigma and misunderstanding. One of humor's greatest strengths is its ability to make hard conversations easier to start. Talking about mental health, it can be intimidating. It often involves confronting things we'd rather avoid, feelings of inadequacy and fear and even despair. These aren't easy subjects to bring up with friends and family or even ourselves, but humor provides an entry point. Imagine trying to explain executive dysfunction to someone who's never experienced it. You could launch into a detailed explanation about how it's tied to ADHD and impacts the brain's ability to prioritize tasks. Or you could say something like, "My brain treats doing the dishes like solving world hunger." It's impossible and it requires a miracle, right? That second option, it gets the point across, but it also makes the conversation a little bit more approachable. Now, that's not to say that humor works in every situation, right? There are times when what you need is a heartfelt, serious conversation. But in many cases, humor can act like a stepping stone, easing the tension and making it feel safer to engage with challenging topics. I've seen this happen time and time again with my own content. One of my most shared videos is about anxiety brain at night. I joke about how it replays every embarrassing moment of my life when I'm trying to sleep. It's funny because it's absurd, but it's also painfully relatable for anyone who's experienced anxiety. The comments on that video were a mix of laughter and gratitude. People said things like, "I thought I was the only one who did this," and "Thank you for making me feel a little less weird about this." And that's the magic of humor. It doesn't just make people laugh, it makes them feel understood. It takes something deeply personal and makes it universal. It turns a lonely experience into a shared experience. So why does relatability even matter? It's a good question. When it comes to mental health, one of the most harmful feelings is isolation. Struggling with anxiety, depression, ADHD, that can make you feel like you're the only person in the world dealing with these challenges. Humor combats that by highlighting the shared humanity in our struggles. Think about the last time you laughed at something because it was so you, because it was a meme about procrastinating until the very last minute, or a TikTok about introverts rehearsing their Starbucks order in their head before speaking it out loud, right? That laugh is a moment of validation. It's proof that your experiences aren't weird, they're not wrong, they're just part of being human. When I joke about how my anxiety convinces me that everyone I know secretly hates me, it's not to diminish how painful those feelings can be. It's to say, hey, I've been there too. And if you have, you're not alone. Humor lets us process these feelings in a way that feels less overwhelming. It creates a safe space to acknowledge our struggles without letting them consume us. This is especially important for people who might not feel ready to engage with mental health in a more formal or clinical way. For some, the idea of therapy or self help books can feel intimidating or inaccessible. Humor provides a more approachable alternative. It says, you don't have to have it all figured out. Let's just start here with a laugh. You see, humor's impact doesn't stop with the individual, it has this amazing ripple effect. When one person feels validated and connected through humor, they're more likely to share that feeling with other people. And this creates a culture of openness and understanding around mental health. I've seen this ripple effect firsthand. One follower messaged me after sharing one of my videos about executive dysfunction with their family. They explained how the humor in the video helped their loved one understand what they were going through in a way that words alone hadn't been able to. That is the power of humor. It makes complex personal experiences accessible to others. These moments are why I do what I do. Humor isn't just about making people laugh, it's about creating a connection and fostering understanding. It's about helping people feel less alone in their struggles. One of the reasons mental health conversations are difficult, honestly, it comes down to fear, fear of judgment, fear of misunderstanding, and sometimes even fear of admitting to ourselves that we're struggling. Humor disarms that fear, right? When we laugh, we let our guard down. We become more open, more receptive, and more willing to engage with the tough stuff. Humor turns I can't talk about this into maybe I can. It shifts the tone from heavy to manageable, making it easier to take the first steps towards understanding and healing. For me, humor has always been a way to process my own mental health challenges. When I joke about ADHD or anxiety, it's not because these things aren't hard, it's because they are. Humor helps me face them head on without feeling overwhelmed. And when I share that humor with others, it creates a ripple effect. It encourages them to do the same. So, why does humor matter in mental health conversations? Well, because it breaks down barriers, it fosters connection, it validates experiences, and most importantly, it reminds us that even in the hardest moments, you're not alone. Humor doesn't replace serious reflection or professional help, but it does make those feelings feel more accessible. It's a tool for starting the conversation, for making the unbearable just a little bit more bearable. If you've ever felt seen, understood, or even just a little less alone because of a shared laugh, then you've experienced the power of humor in mental health. It's not about making light of our struggles, it's about finding light within them. And that's why I believe humor belongs in these conversations, because sometimes the best way to face hard stuff is with a smile. Okay, so let's talk about how I approach humor in a safe way, how I approach humor safely. Humor is a powerful tool in mental health conversations, but it's also a tool that needs to be wielded responsibly. When it's done right, humor can break down barriers and validate feelings and make tough topics more approachable. But when done carelessly, it can hurt, it can alienate, it can even trivialize the very struggles that it aims to highlight. That's why I've developed a very careful, intentional approach to how I use humor in my content. In this segment, I want to share the guiding principles that shape my use of humor, particularly when it comes to sensitive topics like mental health. My approach boils down to three core rules. Number one, no punching down. Number two, self deprecation done right. And number three, maintaining respect and boundaries. These three rules help me ensure that my humor uplifts the people rather than diminishing them, the goal is to help connect people more than divide people, right? So let's start with no punching down. That's a big one for me. I believe that's the golden rule of using humor safely. Just never punch down. Humor should build people up, not really tear them down. That's just my own personal opinion. Punching down, it means making jokes at the expense of other people, especially marginalized groups or people that are already struggling. When it comes to mental health, punching down can reinforce stigma and perpetuate harmful stereotypes and make people feel ashamed or invalidated. For example, imagine a joke that trivializes someone's anxiety or mocks their ADHD symptoms. That kind of humor doesn't connect. It alienates. It sends the message that their struggles are a joke and or that they're not worth taking seriously. That's not the kind of space that I want to create. Instead, my humor is rooted in empathy and the shared experiences. I don't laugh at people. I laugh with people. My goal is to find the common ground in our struggles and use humor to foster a sense of connection. For instance, when I make a joke about my ADHD brain convincing me to start 5 tasks simultaneously without finishing any of them, it's not about mocking ADHD. It's about highlighting a shared experience that many people with ADHD can relate to. That relatability creates a sense of camaraderie, reminding people that they're not alone in their challenges. You see, punching down is easy, but it's also lazy and it's harmful. Building people up through humor takes more effort, but the results are worth it. It creates a space where people feel seen and validated and supported, where humor becomes a bridge rather than a barrier. So that's about punching down. Let's talk about number two, self deprecation, when it's done right. The majority of my humor is self deprecating, and that's intentional. By drawing from my own life and experiences, I'm able to share stories that feel authentic and relatable. Self deprecating humor can be a powerful way to say, hey, I get it. I've been there. It removes the hierarchy between creator and audience, creating a sense of equality and shared humanity. But like in all forms of humor, self deprecation has its risk, right? If taken too far, it can become harmful, not just for the person making the joke, but for the people hearing it as well. Constantly putting yourself down can reinforce negative self perceptions, both for yourself and for your audience. So, how do I ensure that my self deprecating humor stays uplifting rather than harmful? Well, first, I focus on the quirks and the absurdities of my experiences rather than framing them as personal failings. When I joke about my anxiety brain replaying every awkward moment of my life at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm not saying I'm a mess and I'll never get better. What I'm saying is, this is what I deal with. And if you deal with it too, you're not alone. Second, I pair self deprecating humor with self compassion. The humor highlight of my flaws or challenges, it highlights that, right? But it also acknowledges that those flaws are part of being a normal human being. They don't define my worth or my capability. They're just part of my story. For example, I often joke about how my executive dysfunction makes starting tasks feel like trying to move a mountain. It's a lighthearted way to describe a real struggle, but I also make it clear that this is something I'm working on, and it's something that I approach with patience and kindness toward myself. You're often going to hear me say, you got to give yourself grace, right? Self-deprecating humor can be incredibly effective when it's done right. Conan O'Brien does it perfectly. He's the king of it, right? He's my hero when I think of self-deprecating humor. He knows how to balance that, right? It creates a safe space for others to laugh at their own struggles without judgment, helping them feel less alone and more connected. But it requires a balance, one that celebrates our shared humanity without reinforcing harmful narratives. And then lastly, right, we already talked about not punching down. We talked about self-deprecation. Number three, maintaining respect and boundaries. That's a critical aspect of using humor safely, maintaining respect and boundaries. This means being thoughtful about what I joke about and ensuring that my humor comes from a place of authenticity and lived experience. One of the ways I do this is by sticking to what I know. I only make jokes about mental health challenges that I've experienced firsthand, like ADHD, anxiety, depression, existential OCD. These are the conditions that I've been diagnosed with, the ones that I navigate every day. When I joke about them, I'm not speaking for others, I'm just sharing my story. For example, I might joke about how my ADHD makes me hyper focus on the most random tasks while ignoring everything else on my to do list. That's a real lived experience for me, and it's one that many people with ADHD can relate to. But I wouldn't make jokes about conditions I haven't experienced, like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, because I don't fully understand what it's like to live with those challenges. It's not my story to tell. I don't want to risk misrepresenting or trivializing those experiences. This principle extends beyond mental health conditions to other aspects of identity and experience. I'm mindful of the fact that my perspective is shaped by my background, and I avoid making assumptions about what others go through. Even within the conditions I've been diagnosed with, there's a wide spectrum of experiences. My ADHD might present differently than someone else's, and my anxiety might manifest in ways that others don't relate to. That's why I frame my humor as personal rather than universal. When I joke about my executive dysfunction making me avoid tasks until the very last moment, I'm not saying this is how everyone with ADHD feels. What I am saying is this is my experience, and if it resonates with you, that's great. By maintaining respect and boundaries, I ensure that my humor is both authentic and inclusive. It's about creating a space where people feel safe to laugh without feeling misrepresented or excluded. At the heart of all of these principles is intentionality. Using humor safely in mental health conversations isn't something that happens by accident. It's a deliberate choice. It requires thought, empathy, and a willingness to reflect on how your words might impact others. For me, this means constantly checking in with myself. Am I making a joke that uplifts or one that tears down? Am I staying true to my own experiences or am I stepping into territory I don't fully understand? Am I creating a space where people feel seen, validated, and connected? Or am I risking harm? These are the questions that I ask myself every time that I create content. And while I don't always get it perfect, my commitment to those principles, it helps guide me in the right direction. You see, friends, using humor in mental health conversations, it's about more than just getting a laugh. It's about creating connection, fostering understanding, and making the hard stuff a little easier to face. But it's also about being thoughtful, empathetic, and responsible. By avoiding punching down, focusing on self deprecating humor that uplifts, and maintaining respect and boundaries, I strive to create a space where humor feels safe and inclusive. It's a space where we can laugh at life's challenges without diminishing their seriousness, and where we can find joy and connection even in the midst of struggle. Humor has the power to heal, but only when it's used with care. That's why I approach it in a way that I do. It's not just a tool for laughter, but it's a tool for building bridges and making people feel a little less alone. Humor is one of the most effective tools for fostering connection and understanding, particularly when it comes to mental health. Its power lies not only in making people laugh, but in breaking down barriers, creating safe spaces, and helping others feel seen. While mental health those struggles can feel isolating, humor has the ability to turn these experiences into moments of shared humanity. So in this segment, I'll explore the profound impact humor has on mental health conversations, both for individuals and for communities. At its core, at its core, I should say, humor is about connection. It bridges the gap between people by highlighting shared experiences, even in the context of something as deeply personal as mental health. Mental health challenges, whether it's anxiety, ADHD, depression, or OCD, it can feel isolating. Many of us struggle in silence, believing that we're the only ones dealing with these issues. Humor can be the antidote for that loneliness. Take, for example, one of my most popular videos about executive dysfunction. In it, I joke about how my brain treats doing simple tasks like answering the email or folding laundry. It treats it as if there were these Herculean feats, right? The video was it was lighthearted, it was relatable, but the real magic happened in the comments. People began sharing their own struggles with executive dysfunction, commiserating over their shared frustration and the absurdity of it all. One person wrote, I thought I was just crazy, but now I see that this is just a part of my ADHD. Thank you for helping me understand myself a little bit better. It felt good to read that, you know? Another person commented, I didn't know anyone else felt this way. This made me laugh and it made me cry at the same time. These kinds of interactions remind me that humor matters in so much of the mental health conversations that are out there. It doesn't just entertain, it creates a sense of belonging. When someone sees their own experiences reflected in a humorous post, it validates their feelings and lets them know that they're not alone. Mental health struggles can be hard to articulate, right? How do you describe the weight of anxiety pressing down on your chest, the mental fog of ADHD, or the spiral of intrusive thoughts from OCD? These experiences are often invisible, making it very difficult to explain them to other people or even to understand them for ourselves. Humor helps turn these abstract feelings into something tangible and relatable. For instance, I once joked about how my anxiety turns every minor inconvenience into this apocalyptic scenario. The humor resonated with so many people who have experienced the same thing. One of the vibers out there, they said, "Hey Kai, your video made me realize how much my anxiety blows things out of proportion. Seeing it in a funny way helped me feel a little less ashamed of it." This is the beauty of humor. It validates experiences that might otherwise feel too embarrassing or shameful to talk about. By laughing at the absurdity of these struggles, we acknowledge their existence and give ourselves permission to process them without judgment. Humor also makes difficult topics more approachable. Mental health can be intimidating to discuss, even amongst close friends and family. The weight of stigma and fear of being misunderstood often prevents people from opening up. Humor removes some of that fear by softening the conversation. One of my favorite examples comes from a Viber who messaged me after sharing one of my videos about anxiety with their family. The video poked fun at how anxiety can make you overanalyze every word that you've ever said ever, even years later, right? This Viber had even had been struggling to explain their anxiety to their loved ones, right? But the humor of the video gave them an entry point. They told me, your video made me laugh. It made them laugh, but it also helped them understand what I'm going through. It opened up a conversation that we've never had before. That is the ripple effect of humor. It starts with a laugh, but it leads to deeper understanding and connection. Humor isn't a replacement for serious conversations, but it's often the spark that's needed to make those conversations possible. One of the most rewarding aspects of using humor in mental health conversations is seeing the sense of community that it creates. When people laugh together, they feel less alone. Humor transforms what might feel like an individual struggle into a shared experience, reminding us that we're all navigating life's challenges in our own ways. On my platform, I've seen this play out countless amount of times. A single post can spark hundreds of comments from people sharing their own experiences, offering words of encouragement, or simply saying, hey, same here. This collective sharing turns a solitary experience into something communal. This sense of community, it's invaluable. Mental health struggles can feel so isolating, but humor reminds us that we're part of a larger supportive group of people who understand what we're going through. Humor doesn't just validate and connect, it also it empowers, man. It empowers. When people see their struggles reflected in a humorous, non-judgmental way, it can give them courage to take action. I've received messages from Vibers who said that my content encouraged them to seek therapy or talk to their doctor for the first time. One person shared with me, "Your jokes about ADHD made me realize I might have it too. I finally got diagnosed and now I'm getting the help that I need. Thank you for making it feel okay to talk about this." Goodness gracious, those moments are incredibly meaningful to me. They're proof that humor can be a catalyst for positive change. It creates a safe space for people to explore their mental health without fear, without judgment, giving them the confidence to take the next step in their mental health journey. The impact of humor in mental health conversations goes far beyond individual moments of laughter. Again, it creates ripples that extends into families and friendships and communities. A single joke can spark a conversation that can lead to understanding, and understanding that can lead to support and healing. Humor is not a cure for mental health challenges, nor is it a substitute for professional help. But it's a powerful tool to break down the stigma, to foster connection, to make the hard stuff a little bit more manageable. Friends, as we wrap up today's episode, I want you to take a moment to reflect on everything that we've explored. Everything that we explored today. We've talked about the role of humor in mental health conversations, how it can break down barriers, validate feelings, and create meaningful connections. We've dived into how I approach humor responsibly, avoiding punching down, leading into self-deprecation with compassion and respecting boundaries. And we've seen how humor can foster community, how it can empower individuals to seek help and turn isolation into a sense of belonging. But here's the heart of it all, friends. Humor, it matters because it reminds us that we're human. Life, especially with mental health challenges, it can be overwhelming. It can be messy. It can be downright hard. There are days when getting out of bed feels like a victory, and nights when your mind won't stop replaying the most embarrassing moment that you've ever had. Those moments are real and they're valid. And while humor isn't a cure, it could be a light. It could be a way to take a step forward even when the weight feels heavy. Laughter doesn't dismiss the seriousness of mental health challenges. It acknowledges them in a way that feels approachable. It says, this is hard, but you're not alone in it. It offers a pause, a breath, and a reminder that even in the midst of struggle, there's still room for joy. There's still room for connection. There's still room for understanding. One of the most powerful things about humor is its ability to validate. It turns complex, hard to describe feelings into something tangible and relatable. When you laugh at a joke about ADHD or anxiety and think, wow, that's me, it's not just funny, it's affirming. It's proof that your experiences are real, they're shared, and most importantly, they're valid. That validation is incredibly healing, especially in a world that often stigmatizes or misunderstands mental health. So, as you go about your day, friends, I encourage you to find moments of levity in your own journey, whether it's a funny meme that captures your mood, a relatable video that makes you laugh, or a lighthearted conversation with a friend. Lean into those moments. They're not just a distraction, they're a form of care, a way to navigate the hard stuff with a little bit more ease. I'll tell you this before we go. One of the funniest things that I have to deal with is like I go to therapy every other Friday. And what's funny is that people send my therapist videos of me being like, hey, this is how I feel, not knowing that they're sending their videos. They're sending their videos to my therapist. She finds it hilarious. I find it funny too. I'm like, if these people only knew that they're sending my videos to the person who's keeping me afloat right now. Oh man, listen, friends, before we close out, I want to hear from you, right? How has humor played a role in your mental health journey? I want to know. I need to know. I think that's really important to share that, right? Have you had a moment where laughter helped you feel a little less alone, or made a tough conversation? Right? Share your story with me on social media. Share it via email. I'd love to connect with you and hear your experiences. Like, share it with me. I want to know. And if you're looking for more resources or support, don't forget to check out my mental health resources help, which is on my website, thevibewithkai.com. It's filled with tools and support groups and links to professional resources designed to help you on this journey. With that said, my friends, thank you for sharing time with me. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. It really does mean a lot. Remember, no matter what you're going through, you're not alone. You're not alone. Life's challenges, they can feel overwhelming, yeah, but together we can navigate them. We can navigate them with honesty, connection, and a little bit of laughter along the way.
And that's a wrap on this week's episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you found a little bit of comfort in today's episode, and I hope that you're walking away with a little bit of encouragement, and I hope that you laughed a little bit along the way. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like it and subscribe and leave a review. Let me know what you thought of the episode. I really want to hear your voice. I want to hear your story. I want to hear all about your journey. Let's keep the conversation going. Make sure you follow me on all of your favorite social media platforms. Follow me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be, at The Vibe with Kai for more tips, more laughs, and more real talk. Remember, my friends, you are not alone on this journey. We are in this together. And until next time, stay kind to yourself, embrace the journey, and keep vibing. I'll catch you next time. Much love. Good vibes.